Okay, how's everyone doing? So I just started a Patreon. So I'm gonna make more awesome videos to spread the good word, and probably not leaving bed because I'm lazy. Let's talk about some shows I just watched. I just watched Unorthodox, a Netflix four-part series that's about a young woman forced to marry very young, who's in ultra-Orthodox Jewish community that restricts her greatly. I have a lot of experience with this because I'm Jewish, not Orthodox or ultra Orthodox Jewish, but I did have a couple Jewish roommates and I lived on the fringe of a Jewish community in Richmond, and that community was fine. But I've often heard horror stories of communities in the northeastern United States, a few who really overdid it. Their children are not allowed to access secular information or influences, so they only know one way of life. They will be cut off from their family. And shunned if they turn away from that life, and they have to marry young and have lots of babies, and it's pretty nightmarish. And this series really highlights those problems. It humanizes it, puts a face on it. In a young woman named Esty, who has a lot of complications that are not contrived. She's pregnant. She has a husband who is not particularly adept as a lover. She has a passion for music. Just all these kinds of things that round up the character in ways that really aid the story moving forward. The show is a bit of a love story. It's a bit of a self-discovery story. One of the great clever things about the show is that it doesn't have exposition much. You're dropped with a woman who's on her way, running away from home to Berlin. Then it goes to a scene of a piano teacher who might be evicted, but she offers piano lessons to a young girl. Then there's a scene of a woman. She has a wig, so a different wig, so she looks a little different, than I guess the main character, even though they're all the same character, who is at a table with her future husband, and they're sort of on their first kind of blind date to sort of figure each other out, and paths intersect. You see the hypocrisy of religion at its highest, where people lack empathy and humanity, and it's a very true to this story that's going on and the dangers of it today. So it's definitely an important film. It's a series to watch. I really do hope it has a second season. I have no idea if it's planned. Moving on, Ryan Murphy, responsible for Glee, American Horror Story, definitely an icon in TV, and Ian Brennan and Darren Criss, and there are probably more producers in the film, made it's either a miniseries or maybe just a full-on series about Scotty Bowers' memoir. Scotty Bowers was an ex-Marine who set up camp at a gas station in Hollywood, and he organized gay trysts as well as heterosexual trysts for clients, including Cary Grant and Rock Hudson and Spencer Tracy, who he claimed was bisexual, somewhat controversially, as well as Katharine Hepburn and Vivian Leigh. And so Ryan Murphy is someone who definitely explores, maybe makes that too much of his mission statement in some of his series. Explores outer or queer lifestyles or queer sexual practices. Also lately he's more into exploring people of color and women, all that sort of intersectionality stuff. So part of his this is the central premise, I think, is part of it is also reimagining Hollywood. If Anime Wong, the first Asian American character, got a big break. I've only seen 2 episodes. I hear Hattie McDaniel, the first Black Oscar winner, is going to come up soon. Part of what's happening, I think, is that the show lacks a bit of focus. It is not unlike Feud, which was a show that accurately showed a past period of Hollywood history, and if you love Hollywood history, you'll love it. But it is a show, but it's about, the life of some pimps at a gas station, but then it tries to branch out into the production of a movie with Anime Wong, a sort of wider net, and it doesn't really distinguish itself from the wide array of films that and television shows that separate Hollywood's past. I would say it's watchable. I don't know if it's must-watchable. I think Ryan Murphy might be spreading himself too thin. He just also came out with A Politician, too, which is also a bit kind of extreme, so it's really interesting to see a lot of this stuff. After we get that, I want to talk about a series called Upload, which is created by Greg Daniels. The Office's Greg Daniels, which is absolutely amazing and terrific. It is a science fiction show about the afterlife and consciousness and how we're living. It's set in a world with a lot of new gadgets. It's a visibly different world than ours, but it's not a dystopic world. It doesn't have the motives of like Blade Runner or The Fifth Element. However, the upsides and downsides to technology can be visible, and that, I think, is closer to the future we're becoming. We're not seeing... And it's about a man whose girlfriend, who's not really committed to, uploads him to the app to a version of a corporate created afterlife, which is like a luxury hotel, without his permission. Sort of without his permission, and he sort of drifts away from his girlfriend, who is kind of portrayed as a bit manipulative and clingy, in favor of the service worker who is designed to sort of be his guide through the afterlife. So there's a really good love triangle going on. But more than that, it's a film that reminds me of, say, Alexander Payne's Downsizing, which shows a sort of human solution to suffering, a grand human solution to suffering. In the movie Downsizing by Alexander Payne, people can live on, people can solve the global warming problem by shrinking themselves down so their carbon footprint is smaller and their dollar goes farther. And in Upload, people's money doesn't matter as much. However, it still is capitalism, and I like that over something like Star Trek, which is a post-scarcity world, which I always found disturbing and unrealistic. So there's a lot to say about the way that Greg Daniels created this world. It is a world that is very realistic. It answers a lot of nitpicky questions I have, and it, just like real life, favors the people who have resources, who can afford to keep their loved ones in the afterlife alive, like a nursing home, say, and with good quality of living conditions. And it continues to build corners of the world. And I'm on the 5th episode now, and there's like it's called a gray market, which is like a black market. People still have needs for food, for sexual needs. They have the need to make money. They also cover things like, say, going to the bathroom or eating food that is realistic and looks like food, or to maintain schedules, because psychologically people are attached to those traits. So there's so many interesting facets of this world, and I can really appreciate that in a great science fiction series. But it has a very human element, and it also has sort of a murder mystery component too, so it has a lot packed into it. I've also been watching Waco, which reminds me of, actually, possibly Ryan Murphy's best work, which is The People vs. O.J. Simpson. And that it's an event that I vaguely remember from my childhood, but it's told from multiple perspectives. It is a miniseries with just a plethora of amazing character actors. John Leguizamo, Shea Wiggum, Michael Shannon, Julie Garner, Andrea Riseborough, Melissa Benoist. None of these people are stars, but they really kind of come together. It tells the story from multiple points from, well, basically 2 points of view: the law agency's point of view, as well as people inside the compound. Like a lot of great serialized shows, it's very ensemble driven, but it really has a tight focus on the David Koresh character, and it shows bits of very bizarre sexism and flaws in religion, while also not necessarily painting him to be wrong in the eyes of his viewers. The series has more suspense if you don't specifically know the events, But I imagine, like, People vs. O.J. Simpson, even if you knew the events, it shows them in a new light. Also, I'm watching Middleditch and Schwartz, which is just 3 episodes, and it really needs to be longer. I've never seen improvisation this good. And I think it has to do with the style of these two comedians. They sort of break the fourth wall at the right moments. They don't overdo it. They have a lot of enthusiasm, and they work a lot of plot threads into ongoing stories, and they switch characters, which allows people to see the character. So like one person plays a guy named Nigel, the other person plays Nigel, and you get to see each one try their comic ticks on the character, and they have a lot of forward momentum. Middleditch and Schwartz is great. All right, thank you so much.